Let's see. Alright. I forgot to check how the camera looks after I reset up here. I think that's good. I now have two monitors again, but I don't have. They're both VGA, and apparently my VGA to HDMI adapter isn't here. It's not in any of my stuff. So I just have the bigger monitor plugged in. The smaller one is sitting over here on not working, and the Mac is still running the chat for me on the other screen. By next week, I will definitely have a new adapter. Then I will have my old setup back. Alright, so I want to come here just to sort of show everyone that I'm following along this schedule and making sure I haven't forgotten anything on it too real quick. So we're going to take a quick browse through this and establish the exact details of the plan for today based on it. Last new features. So the first one here is the project file upgrade, which is what I intend on working on, and right, so we could start with just this list of directories problem. Right, so that's one thing I want to work on. This one I didn't totally describe here, but the idea is to upgrade the way we specify commands and bind them. And so we're going to get these things started, but I want to go a meta level above this before we get started too. First I want to read the rest of these things and see if there's anything else that I should consider. So the list viewer thing, that might come into play once this is here. That might be useful for this. So there are certain things like how we live change which commands we have bound that I might not want to go too far into this part without this in place. I'll just do the basics of this because some of making this nice will depend on having these list viewers available. Yep, this is pretty much unrelated. This is pretty much unrelated. This is pretty much unrelated, except that it will reference the project stuff I make right now, but I'm not going to think ahead to it because it's too far into the future. Alright, so, yeah. So this is something I'm going to do I'm going to get about half of it done and get the other half done once I have these list viewers. But there's sort of a meta thing I want to do before I do either of these to put the project system in a better state to support extensions. Hello to the people in the chat. Welcome to the stream. So I guess what I'll do, probably should have started from scratch so we could have a nice clean slate, but oh well. What size of font do I stream at? Usually 12. And I need to stay windowed. There we go. Let me know if you can see. Hey, Flying Solomon. I'm doing well. Oh, that's right, I don't hint this font because it looks goofy hinted. I only use hinting when I'm on the Liberation Mono, not on Hack. Okay. So, let's take a look at if I can get some kind of stream to-do list set up again. So yep, these things down here got finished. Alright, some of those things weren't finished, but I'm done with that direction for now. So we want to work on project system upgrades, and so included in that there's the more general code directory options. More general code file pattern options. Command specification options. And then I want to consider some kind of versioning system for legacy file project, or to keep legacy file projects operating. Maybe? Okay. Yeah, Flying Solomon, I wasn't here for a really long time either. I've just been back last week and this week. Maybe you were talking about me not being here for a long time, or maybe you were talking about you not being here for a long time. But either way, I'm experiencing a sense of deja vu, like I've had this conversation with you before. Like the last time I took a hiatus for a while and came back. I can't remember how it worked out that time. Alright, so that's our to-do list for today, is to get that stuff happening. When we do make changes to this, I will also want to revisit the project generation, the make new project command. That's a command I set up for quickly setting up a project file, and I want to make sure that it still works because I use it sometimes. So there's the to-do list for today. Let's start by looking at the possibility of a versioning system. So I want to look at the way these files are set up first. Right, so I mean the thing is, these files are just a series of assignments, as you can see. They I think they get parsed as C++ code, or like lexed as C++ code, and then I parse them using some stupid hacks. Now what I could do is just say, let's make a thing that parses a grammar, and that this grammar will match, and then throw in like at the top version equals 1, and if you said 0, that's this version, right? And then that'll be the default. So if it doesn't see a version, it assumes we're operating on version 0 of the project system. So that's probably what I'll do. Now, with that in mind, let's talk about upgrading my parser. So, stream to do upgrade to a real parser. So I've been practicing based on watching Bitwise, the pair of Onsen streams, and just, you know, having more time to try these things, more like to get my the counter higher on how many times I've tried this. I've gotten better at parsing than I was when I wrote this, and so I can write much better code that I'll be much happier with if I re-implement the current project system from scratch anyway. If I re-implement this project system from scratch, I can set it up to be easy to support these versions while maintaining the exact same features, and I'll probably get it done pretty quickly, I think, because this is a fairly easy grammar. It'll also make my life easier on some other parts of the theme files in particular, and the config files also are relying on this old style of parsing code. So I think what we're going to do is, before we even visit any of that, what we're actually going to do is make that our number 2 goal, and number 1 goal will be write the new parser, replace upgrade for config.4coder, upgrade for theme, or yeah, upgrade for files, and then upgrade for project.4coder. Alright, so that's the problem. Or that's the plan, I should say. Now let me pull up the code that is actually responsible for that parsing. By the way, I've already spent this week aggressively reorganizing my custom layer, my default custom layer. So, a couple of notes about things that have changed. There's no more power folder anymore. As you can see here, if I type in power, there's nothing. And the code that used to be hidden in that folder is now just a part of the main code base. So Miblo numbers, experiments, and KC have all just been placed into the standard super package now, which isn't even really called super anymore, except in the code and on the title when the title is still the same. So that's one change. Another change is I went and organized all the CPP files where I basically didn't have any rules about what was a header and what was a CPP. And actually, now that I say that out loud, I want to double check that I finished that, because I think I didn't. Right. So yeah, all of these are now clean CPPs, and these are all clean header files. I also condensed all the stuff under the helper folder to make it into one file. So you know what, before we do any of that, I'm going to add another to-do. This is going to be a full day, so this is a little proto to-do. Finish reorganization. I was actually hoping to get that done last night, but I didn't end up doing it, so we'll do that first. Of custom layer code. Alright, so for that kind of work, what I want to do is I want to start by saying, let's get a line count. I'm going to get a line count for just those files that say 4coder, as well as those files that say 4coder lib, and 4coder API, and 4coder, why don't we just do, oh you can't, damn. So 4coder API, and 4coder generated. I believe those are the relevant 4coder files. We get a line count on that. Alright, so that's 20,000 lines of code that goes into what I ship to users. So it's a little less than half of the code base is in this custom side, and I've kind of used the excuse that it's on the custom side to let it be sloppy for a long time, and I'm no longer using that excuse. I also noticed that there's a weird number of files in the 600 line range. Like, for some reason that is a sweet spot that gets really hammered in this code section of the code, that every file implements a handful of commands and utilities that adds up to 600 lines. You see that? It's weird. Usually it's like a bunch of hundreds and thousands, like it has the thing where the numbers starting with 1 are the most common, but for some reason 6s really perform well on the custom layer. Anyway, well, let's try to get this number down while we're organizing stuff. So that's our basic goal, is reorganize stuff and see if we can find ways to reduce that line count when we do that. To make the custom layer a little simpler, because we're going to be doing a lot of work there in the next few builds. So, what is this stuff? One thing I'm doing right now is I don't want include.cpp to actually have code in it anymore. That was always supposed to be a hack, and it's grown to the point that it's like a non-trivial amount of work actually happens in the include.cpp besides just including things, which I don't really like, because it doesn't include is not default include doesn't really describe what's going to be in there. It describes to you that you include this thing to get all the default behavior, which means if you're looking for list all locations of type definition parameters, it's not in any location where you're likely to find it, right? Build string. So build string is a helper specifically used in list all locations of type definition parameters. That's fine, I'll leave it there then. Get search definition. Okay, so that's defined there and called down there. Don't like that. Let's consider removing it. So, get search definition takes in a query bar, some space for a string, and it queries the user for a string, list definitions for, and yeah, okay. So that's super lame. Let's try this. Okay, so this guy here, I'm gonna put a second underscore on like that. It's kind of a aesthetic thing I've been doing recently that I've been enjoying quite a bit. So the point of that is that name is pretty long, and the extra underscore lets me group them together in a way that lets me read them more naturally. So I can now see that this is a special like subroutine. It has a special meaning in a special context, and isn't really meant to be thought of as like a general thing that stands on its own, some monolithically long, complex procedure name, right? So the idea is it does a list all locations of type definition, and it's a variation or a sub piece of that system called parameters that then I can think to myself, okay, list all locations of type definition. That sounds like it could be a command, right? It does something kind of command like making a list of all locations of a type definition, but then the parameters tells me, it must be something that takes a parameter. And you know, while I'm at it, I guess I should parameterize it more fully, like this, right? So okay. Now where is this thing? List all locations parameters. It's first defined right here in search. Okay, list all locations parameters takes a general and a part, a list of strings, a count, and some match flags. Okay, got it. Now that's not going to build, so let's get that building again. Those name changes. What the hell is this? Okay, so that takes me to the correct line. If I do this, okay, it still takes me to the correct line. Did it reparse after the edit and then get everything mixed up? Uh-oh. My screen isn't set up correct. Thank you for the notification. Give me a sec while I work on that. How do I... Probably have to restart the stream because probably the resolution stuff is going to be messed up. Yeah. Okay. I will be right back. Thank you, SilentST, for the heads up. I will fix that and be right back.